G'day, Kev Bell here. I'm going to, in the next few minutes, just quickly go through what is NABS, what's the process, what's it look like out there, and where are we after 3 years at it now. It's interesting. Righto, the objectives of the NABS SDIs. Northern Australia Biosecurity Surveillance. That's what it's all about. We need the capacity for early detection of disease incursions from the north. And we also need to provide livestock health status, the proof that our animals are healthy for market access. Now, the idea of how do we do this is by leveraging, taking advantage of the unique relationship that private vets have with their clients and using their skills to convert those inquiries into a case investigation and hopefully a diagnosis. And secondly, very importantly, it's to build relationships between all those people in the front line, the private vets, government vets, laboratories, and it really strengthens that team that are working out there. Look, for those who are not familiar with it, a quick look at the process. First of all, you obviously get a call from someone where there is a problem. It's good if you contact myself, the advisor, to discuss the case. It's always going to be eligible, I'd say, but it's good to know it's happening, and I get a phone call from someone in a car on the way there or the way back, and that's really good. Perform the investigation, submit samples to the state lab, label them SDI, write up the case report, results, recommendations for the producer, and send all that material to myself, the vet advisor. I let the state contact know, and payment is arranged back to the clinic after looking at any invoices if necessary. So it's a pretty simple process, and that's why it's working. Yeah, so what's it look like out there? Well, at the moment, there's 131 people out there in the network, and I guess focus on that, the red bars, the private vets at that front line we talked about. Looks like there's about 40 or 50 of them working from about 20 practices, as you'll see. But note, there's a lot of people really out there very interested in and supporting in whatever way possible the work of those vets. We mentioned practices. Well, it looks pretty thin when you look at this map, but don't get stressed about that. About 20 practices across the whole of the north, and I think it's important to realise that they are the hub of the people that go out there and fill in the gaps, shall we say, as we'll see on the next slide. I find this really interesting to think of that number of clinics, and then we think of that barrier, that line we have across the whole of the north, which is steadily being filled in over 3 years. And those numbers actually are just what happened in the first year, the second year, and the third year. And look, the very interesting thing that I've noticed in my role is that it's been steady. We thought to start with it's going to get going in a rush or slowly, and then it'll build, or now it's dropping off. But it's just been very steady. Every quarter between 6 and 10 cases, and the numbers are slowly growing and steadily growing, and really filling in that access to that whole northern area. I find that really interesting. And here we've got the species involved, and not surprisingly, cattle are the major species represented, because that's out there, and that's what we as vets would expect to be called to, and we need to do that. But it's interesting that we've got a significant number of sheep, and buffalo, for example. We've got, not surprisingly, a few horses. The horses are on most stations, and we need to know what's happening there. Of course, pigs, camelids, goats. So they're all out there, but we need to capture what's happening across the north in disease in all these species, but cattle are the major ones we're looking at. What are the major presenting syndromes that we're finding here? Well, as you and I well know, the most common one is sudden death. And after that, it's other. Neurological signs are starting to become more important. And yeah, we've got a smattering of skin lesions, respiratory, ill thrift, of course. But it highlights the fact that with sudden death and neurological signs, the diagnoses become quite difficult, particularly with sudden death and delayed access to sampling, etc. Requires a lot of skill and perception on the part of the vet. So, but that's what we're working with. That's real life. Right, just putting it, presenting syndromes by animal species. We notice with our ruminants, cattle and sheep, the presenting syndrome is sudden death. And that's what I alluded to in the last slide, that it makes your skills particularly required here. Neurological signs for horses, and everything else is distributed through all species, but that sudden death one is something that we've got to work with, and it's what keeps us going. So look, keep up the good work. It's going well. It's building well, achieving its aims, I think. So keep up the good work. It's fantastic.